Let's all scream. Let's all scream. Scream, let's all scream.
Hello everyone and welcome to Let's All Scream. My name is Saleh Al Braik
I'm Shehlaa Ali.
And I'm Hassan Al Marashi.
and welcome to our latest episode. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing well. I feel like this week went by pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Nothing too eventful, but I don't know. It just felt like an okay week.
Yeah, I feel like the same thing with me. Like when I look back in the past week, I don't really notice anything. Like nothing jumps out.
Yeah.
But it just went by quickly, and you know.
Well, obviously now it lands on me, the star of the show. Let me tell you about my week.
Okay, Saleh.
No, but I did end up doing two things that I feel like I'm proud of, and I never thought that this would be something that stood out as an activity, but I went to a drive-through cinema, like a drive-in cinema.
Yeah, how was that?
It was pretty
Traitor.
cool. I know. I'll just side past that. Can we edit that out? But basically, I was invited by a very good friend of mine, and they were like, "Oh, there's the drive-through cinema experience." And I'm at the moment, I actually don't mind going to the cinema as is. Like, I don't mind actually going to a physical cinema. But I was like, let me take baby steps.
Right.
And you never know how long drive-through cinemas are going to be around for.
Yeah.
Because, until everything goes back to full normal. But I said I have to experience it. So that was pretty cool. Even when I told my mom that I was going to go to a drive-through cinema, she was telling me how it reminded her of being a kid because there used to be a drive-through cinema here in Dubai
Okay.
in
Oh,
the
really?
80s. Yeah,
Oh,
and it
wow.
closed down in the mid 80s or late 80s. And she said that, how it was there, and that there was like a microphone next to the car that you can, speak to the attendee, and that if you want to listen, you have to put your windows down, and that's how you listen to the screen.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and now it's completely different because obviously we're like literally in the world 2.0 in the 21st century.
Yeah.
Because as soon as I went to the one that was on a rooftop of a parking lot. And so you'd go on the rooftop, and then for your car, it was so extra. There was like a red carpet
Oh, wow.
for the car. And then they had these like all like, I don't know what they call them, like fairy lights.
Okay.
But it was, instead of like the mini lights, it was like bulbs. So like studio
okay.
bulbs.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it really made you feel like you're going into Hollywood, the
Right.
whole like theme. And then I felt very comfortable because I was already in my car. And you're, I think, only allowed 2 people per car, if not
Okay.
3. So you don't feel like claustrophobic or anything. And then, obviously, you go in, they give you the snacks, they scan your ticket, everything is very safe. And then you park in your zone. And then the cool thing is how you listen to the movie is you have to switch on the FM station,
Oh,
so
okay.
a radio station that's connected to the screen. And it was literally like a cinema experience. So,
That's so
and my
cool.
friend brought, blankets
Yeah.
and extra snacks and stuff like
Right.
that. But it was really cool. The only downside to the drive-through cinemas right now is that there's no new movies coming out.
That's what I was
Yeah.
going to ask. What's playing these days?
So they're just rehashing movies that came out in the past year.
Oh, okay.
So I rewatched a movie, and I think
What
I-
did you watch? I think our listeners would be curious.
I watched The Spy Who Dumped Me with Mila Kunis.
Okay, I haven't seen that one.
It is hilarious. I would honestly, if you guys, because it'll be perfect, because it's any 2 per
Two.
car.
Yeah.
Right.
It's gonna be perfect, or 3 per car. I don't mind coming again. Just saying. But it was really cool because they give you enough snacks. They give you, and you're so
Okay.
comfortable. No one bothers you. You're in your car. You have your air
Yeah.
conditioning on.
Yeah.
The only thing is, of course, is when I told a friend about it, they were just like, "Oh, so your car is switched on for 2 hours?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "That's not good for the environment." I'm just like, stop ruining my moment. But overall, it was cool.
I just want to go back to when you said that you're ready to go back into the cinema. My anxiety started creeping up, and I'm just like, "What? You're gonna go back to the cinema? No, no."
But no, for like the only reason why I think I'm ready is because going out, exposing yourself more to
Yeah.
the outside world, you see how many restrictions and how many safety regulations that people are taking. So even when another thing that I did this weekend was I went to a coffee shop for the first time. Like I actually went to sit in
Yes.
one.
Right.
It's unheard of. So when I had gone, it was so funny. By the way, the center. I don't know if they call them centerpieces. I don't think they call them centerpieces if it's just coffee tables. But basically, the thing that they kept in the middle of the table, instead of being the
Yeah.
regular
Yeah.
flour or tissue box, it
a
was little.
sanitizer?
It was little Dettol sanitizers everywhere. It was hilarious, and it was like it just looked so normal. Yet, like I just sat and I was like, when did I ever think that coffee shops would have little Dettol
Yeah.
sanitizers in the middle of
Yeah.
each table? But that was also like when I had gone there and saw all the regulations that they were doing in order to keep everything clean, and everyone was wearing masks. Everyone was abiding by the whole
Yeah.
rules. That's what convinces me that I think going out, not too crazy, not crazy crowded places, but going out again is somewhat normal and something
Yeah.
that I'd be okay with doing.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. Like, I went to a doctor's appointment, and I had to use an elevator. Of course, as I was pressing the button to the elevator, I'm like, uh-oh. And then I had with me hand sanitizer and, like, of course, the whole, like, sterilizing and
Yeah.
everything. But then once I got into the elevator, even inside the elevator, there is a hand sanitizer stuck on the wall.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
when you get to the clinic, it's like every step you go, there's a hand sanitizer.
Hand sanitizer. That's the thing. Everything is so prepared now, and everything is so extra careful that in my head I'm like, if there was ever a time actually to go out and you worrying about
Would
things
be
that are
now.
clean, would be now. But then it made me stop and think about what were we doing before. So in the sense of before this whole thing happened, we weren't so obsessed with cleaning.
cleaning,
So in my
yeah.
head, I'm like, how dirty
Yeah.
were things? Like
That's what it
chairs.
makes me
or-
think is like I feel like we're so barbaric.
yeah, it's like now, so I think it's going to change the whole game from now on.
Yeah.
Like, I think everyone who is neglecting, cleaning a table after each customer at a restaurant, or, when you go to a coffee shop and they give you a cup, everything that, the whole cleaning process and sanitizing process is going to change from here on out. And something that, obviously with my line of work that I read about when it comes to, say, tourism, something that I realized is this is, by the way, normal practice in the Far East. So in the Far East of the world, Far East Asia, Thailand, Singapore, and whatnot, I've just seen all these like documentations and news that for them, the whole sanitizing and wearing masks, etc., has been a norm for the past 7 to 8 years.
Yeah.
So, and I could be wrong if anyone wants to educate me on this, but this is what I read from the article. And so I think like how it changed their lives back then, and
Yeah.
now it's something of the norm, it's going to change not just the Arab world, but like the entire
rest of the
Western
world,
world as well.
yeah.
So is it a real bad thing to be more sanitized? I don't know. I just feel like now, out of any time,
Yeah.
while, fear might still be there, it's just, I feel more safer because people are just being more conscious
Yeah.
about sanitizing.
See, the only thing that kind of worries me a bit about like the over sanitization is people's, especially children's immune systems not fully developing properly, because
Yeah.
I feel like they're not getting exposed to as many germs and stuff that they should get exposed to,
Yeah.
so that their immune system gets stronger.
Yeah. True. I didn't think of it.
Yeah,
that
because
So-
we had that discussion
yeah.
the other day, and we were like, you know what? Sorry, Hassan, I cut you off. As much
it's okay.
as much as we've been healthy and we've been sanitizing and being cautious, I feel like there's going to be a wave of just low immunity now because we're not being exposed to as much germs
Yeah.
as we were before. Like right now, if you think about it, majority of the time we're at home. Wherever we go out, we sanitize whatever we touch.
Yeah.
Or at least when we touch something, we sanitize our hands right away. And so I feel like there's going to be, like Hassan said, a dip in the immunity.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but I don't know. We'll see. But when it comes to these things, you have to pick your battles.
Yes.
And,
which is Hassan's low-key hint for me to
it's
start the
our
topic.
segue into the topic.
So the topic for this episode, which I think resonated with all of us because it was the theme of all of our past weeks, which is picking your battles in all its sense. So in the sense when you are faced with different problems in your personal life or in your work life, that where do you exactly put your energy into, and if it's worth putting your energy into. So I wanted to open that discussion for all of us, just because I think it's you have to be mindful of it, but at the same time, where do you draw the line from no, this is worth the battle that I have to pick, and what are the signals that you realize that actually let me just let it go and it's going to cause more harm than good by going for it.
I think with me, how I decide how or what to pick, or which battle to pick, is seeing the different. Okay, like first of all, is this going to make a difference in my future?
Yeah.
Is this going to affect the outcome of whatever the scenario is?
Yeah.
Like let's say it can be an argument with any individual or discussion. It could be picking my battles with the baby and knowing which things to just stop her from, and which is usually, is this going to harm her? Is this going to be dangerous? Or sometimes it's just her being adventurous and, being curious. So, because there are times, and I'm pretty sure like the moms out there who are listening will know that, can really relate to this, is that the baby starts to be active and now she's starting to learn how to walk, and so she's going to anything and grabbing everything. And so I'm like, okay, you know what? I have to pick my battles as to when do I jump in and I interact and I tell her, or interfere, and tell her, no, don't touch this, or no, don't go here. Like for example, today in the kitchen, I was making breakfast and Hassan was still upstairs. And so I just couldn't, I put her down. And when I put her down, she was playing with the cupboards and she was trying to like play with the water bottles and the water cooler. And I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to let her, because usually I don't want her like playing around in the kitchen right underneath my feet, especially when I'm working in the kitchen. But then this time I'm like, you know what, I'm just making a cheese sandwich. I'm just going to let her play, because there's only so much I can stop her from.
Yeah, that's good. It's good that you said that, because also obviously we all know someone in our lives that, when you say they have an aggressive personality, not to say that they're a bad person by nature, but they have an aggressive personality in the sense that they will never let anything go. As in, if they see if they hear a topic that is being discussed, if they see something that is happening that is not aligned with their own kind of vision, or what they think is right, that they're always on attack mode. And I always feel for those people. Sometimes when I look at that, I think to myself, it's so exhausting, I feel, to be constantly arguing on your points. And for some people, hey, mashallah alayhum, يعني عندهم القوة, they have the energy to go through it. But for me personally, when I'm looking at it, I'm just like, I very much notice that I do pick a lot of my battles. And then sometimes what I like to say is I like to go back to my counsel, which is Hassan and Shehlaa, and discuss with them like a round table and be like, is this battle worth it? Or should I go ahead or should I not? And usually my council members tell me, what is the right and wrong thing to do. But I don't know, when people have that mentality of always, being aggressive and fighting every battle, and I just think, how do they gain that energy back? Is it like an Energizer
draining.
Bunny, or what is it?
It's so draining. Like the idea that someone, like you said, being on at all times and they never let any small thing go. I feel like it's so draining.
Yeah. I've dealt with people like that, to be honest, and especially when it comes. So there's a few things that usually it's the battles that we get is number one. I've gotten from extended family members lots of grief for. So me and my sisters are the primary caregivers for our father. because he's elderly and he deals with a few things. And, you know, we've had it where relatives will come over and see that we're not home.
Yeah.
And my dad's, you know, alone between quotes, but he's not really, because there's, you know,
stay-at-home nurse.
There's his 24/7 caregiver who lives with us. There's the
Nanny.
the housekeeper, and we have a driver as well, who doesn't live in the house, but, you know, is there
Yeah.
as well. So he's not alone
Yeah.
by any means. And we had gone out after my dad had fallen asleep. So it's not like he was awake and we had, you know, left him.
Yeah.
Which even if we did, he would be completely fine.
Yeah.
But anyways, so I remember getting a phone call from a relative and getting screamed at and like all this like abuse, and it was like really traumatizing.
Yeah.
And at the time, so this happened on multiple occasions
Yeah.
actually, but the first time it happened, I chose to
Fight.
no,
No,
I
don't.
didn't. On the contrary, I chose to kind of let it go,
Okay.
to cater to their requests, or like to humor them, kind
Yeah.
of. Even though I knew I was doing the best that I could, taking care of my father, especially after my mom had passed away, because this was the same year, and so. And, you know, I told myself, you know, it's out of love for my father that they're concerned and that
Yeah.
they're worried. So I let it go, and we mended the fences, and
It was
and
fine.
It was fine. The next time it happened, I had kind of had enough. And I said, you know what? If I don't stop this now, it's going to keep happening, and
Yeah.
I'm going to keep getting this abuse.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? I'm not going to let you talk to me this way.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let you come once in a blue moon.
Yeah.
You happen to see that my father is that we're out.
Yeah.
Because it really
It
happened
rare-
that
yeah.
way. We would rarely go out, but
Yeah.
the one time that we do,
They'd Subhan.
yeah. And you know, I was like, enough. You can't just come for literally a few minutes, assume the worst, and cause problems.
Yeah.
Like it's not good for my dad. And literally after that second incident,
Yeah.
my dad had a cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
And then we were in the hospital for a while, and he had to have like a pacemaker put in, and it was like, so my dad, the way he reacts to things is he's very calm,
Yeah.
but he has a delayed reaction, so it won't affect him at the time. It will affect him later. So I remember thinking like, first of all, I felt extremely resentful of the fact that it happened, but I also remember thinking that I'm so glad that I stood up.
Yeah.
And since then, to be honest, the relationship has not been fixed with those people, but I'm okay with it because we set our boundaries.
Yeah.
And that was really important. So in that sense, you, as exhausting as it is, and I'm not a confrontational person, you guys know, but when push comes to shove, you have to really find the courage to stand your ground, because it's worth it in the end. The other point I wanted to bring in, sorry, not to like hijack
No, it's okay.
the conversation, is when it comes to parenting,
Yeah.
this drives me nuts. So this is controversial. People are gonna say whatever they want to say. If you do not have children, you
Oh my
cannot
God.
comment on parenting.
Yeah.
I know people want to help. I understand. I know it comes out of love, or out of like, oh, I heard this. Maybe you should try this. Maybe that's all fine. You can advise.
Yeah.
But when you force your opinion, and when you judge, and when you know,
When you start saying like, no,
Criticize.
don't do this,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah,
do
yeah.
this.
it's you really don't need to understand the damage that you're doing to especially new parents and young parents, because as young new parents, we don't have the experience. We're learning as we go. Not learning as we go. We of course have researched as much as we can and studied, but in a sense, we are learning as we go.
Yeah.
And we're doing what we think is best,
Yeah.
and based on the research that we have done, and based on all the hundreds, and I literally mean hundreds, if not thousands, of opinions we have gotten. So for someone with no children to, as much as you can love children, you can have nieces and nephews, you can have, you can have friends who have kids, does not mean you know what it entails to be a parent. That's not a bad thing. That's just the truth.
So is that like where also you draw the line when it comes to like that is a
Taking-
battle you
Yes.
would fight?
See.
So that again, it depends. It really depends on the
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
If they do it once, like if a colleague will say something, of course I won't like start arguments with them. If it's like maybe a friend or a relative and they like, or someone from your family that keeps bringing it up, then maybe it's worth it. But you have to really assess, to be
Yeah.
honest. Like sometimes if you feel the person will not handle your
That's-
pushback,
Yeah.
and they'll take offense to it, then maybe sometimes it's worth
It's
letting
all
it
about
go.
reading the room, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to see what fires are worth putting out and what you
Yeah.
can just let go.
See, with me, I think under the same subject, with me, it depends on, first of all, are you, like Hassan said, pushing your opinion down my throat, so to say? If
Yeah.
you are forcing me to, like, no, you have to do this, no, like, and again, he said once, twice, 3 times, that's where I'm going to start pushing a line. When I say no to something, no, that's it.
Yeah.
I don't want, I once read, no is a complete sentence.
Yeah.
And that really triggered me. You know what? It's like, yes, especially when it comes to my child, who I'm her parent, I know I'm the one who spends the most time with her. So
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
her better than anyone else.
Yeah.
When I tell you, no, this is not good for my child, or no, I don't want to do this, that's it.
Yeah.
But when, there are sometimes there's just people, like Hassan said, friends or colleagues that think they're just helping, but you're like, I really don't want your help. Like,
Yeah.
I'm good. And other times when it's just a suggestion, or like, oh, I've read this, is that true, or have you tried that, I'll welcome, because it's just conversation.
It's funny. There's a few subjects that I feel that people always will have an opinion about: parenting, weight loss, and I don't know what the third is, but those are the two that's come out.
But it's true. Something that both of you said that I guess kind of resonated with me was when I choose to pick battles, or when I receive battles and I have to pick whether to fight it or not. I think it depends on 2 things: A, who it's coming from,
Yeah.
and secondly, what does this person hold value to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a famous quote, and I don't know if I'm going to remember it word by word, but when they say when you get people, when you get opinions from people who don't matter to you, you shouldn't mind them. So basically, if someone and they're trying to give you an opinion, but they have no value to you whatsoever, it's a complete stranger, then don't give value to that opinion.
Yeah.
So just like brush it off.
Yeah.
So and why I say this is because it's very, if you're anything like me, very like an empath, in a way that I like a sponge, take up emotions.
Yeah.
It takes a lot. Like Hassan said, he's non-confrontational, which I know, but I'm the same in the sense of I like to keep my emotions like to myself and then release them to them. But
I think we all are actually here.
yeah, we're not confrontational people
No.
at all. So when I receive an opinion, or when I receive let's say a battle in life, in a life situation, the first thing I ask myself is, who is it coming from? So if it's coming from a friend, let's say it's a friend, okay, fine. I should just look at it. Now, when it comes to the decision of do I fight it or let it go, is how do I value this friendship? Again, I'm talking about if it's a battle amongst a friend, not when it comes to a professional career
Yeah.
or whatever, or personal. So when I look at a friend, if the friend is coming to me and giving me a situation, I think to myself, okay, is this argument going to add value? Or is it or if I argue with it, is it gonna harm
Yeah.
this relationship? And then is it something worth it.
Yeah.
As in, if this person, if I feel like this friend is very dear to my heart, very close friend, and this is a rift or an argument or something that happened that is going to is putting our friendship on the rocks, I think to myself, no, it's worth having this battle so that we can go over this situation together.
Yeah.
Rather than be passive aggressive about it and just keep my opinion to myself. However, if it's someone I feel that doesn't technically, okay, they're a friend, but maybe an acquaintance, doesn't hold that high ranking of a friendship, I think to myself, you know what? In my head, I'm like, just give them their opinion. Because at the end of the day, if I do argue with it, it's not going to change my life, nor is it going to change our friendship. And if, unfortunately, this, whatever the situation is, has this acquaintance not being as close to me as they were before, well, if you're an acquaintance, then you're not really top
Close
ranked.
anyways.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. You always have to kind of, for me, I always address these things whenever I get an issue or if I get a problem. I always think to myself, okay, where is it coming from, and how much do I value where it's coming from, and then I assess. Because if it's really worth it, then yes, I will address it and put energy into it. But I'm always that person in the room where I will always be more about being non-confrontational until it's coming from someone I really care about or hold to a high standard and high degree. Then I feel like, no, this person is worth the energy to argue this about.
Yeah.
In a way, I don't know if I'm making any sense about this, but that's how I kind of think about it.
Okay, follow-up question though. Let's say there is this person who you hold dear to your heart, and you're gonna bring, and that's it. You have to bring it up, and you have to confront them about this issue.
Yeah.
What are the steps that you would take? Would you just directly go and talk to them, or?
I'm always
A lot of iPhone notes.
yeah. No, so if that were to happen to me, what I always do is when I address. So for example, say it's me and Hassan, صح?
Yeah.
But if Hassan brings up an issue, what I would first do is I always think when you're talking to someone that you care about and hold such a high standard for, you first have to relate. So I always go into a person, I'll be like, listen, I heard you. So I'd reiterate what they had said. Then I'd reiterate what I understood from the situation. This is what I saw and heard. This is what I understood. Why I do this is because A, I want them to know that I'm listening to them, that I paid attention to them. And B, I want them to see how I process the information.
Yeah.
Because from that moment, they can come back and say, no, I didn't mean that, I meant this. And immediately that whole argument could change the tone. But of course, we're not all living in an ideal world. And so some things, even through best friends and family members, can take days and months to get over, for example.
Yeah.
But I feel like communication is always key. When it's someone that I hold, I give a lot of value to, they're the ones that are worth picking battles
Yes.
for. You know how they have that saying, and if it's worth it, fight for it.
Yeah.
So that's what I always, when it comes to people I care about. But then if it's something that's not only people, but let's move on to tasks. If it's a task I'm not so passionate about, why bother? Why ruffle feathers when it's something that you don't really care much about. But if it's something that, say for example, you've been working on a paper or a study that took so long, or it's a passion project of yours, if it's a blog, if it's a company, and then someone comes, obviously if someone comes and tells me, again, sorry, I'm taking the mic space, but for
No,
example,
it's fine.
yesterday, I was out with a friend to the coffee shop I mentioned, and he was giving me feedback about our restaurant, and so he was like, "Oh, I went and I have this complaint." You know,
Not just this.
no, this, and he was, and then the thing is, if it, and obviously, okay, yes, he gave the good side, but he also gave, a lengthy notes
Criticism.
of, but how he did it was, he was very okay, so you see this, it shouldn't have happened this way, but I understood it shouldn't have happened this way, and this is how you can improve. So it was constructive criticism instead of just pointing out flaws, and this is why we're friends. But but what I mean is, if that came from, say, someone I didn't know, okay, and someone came and told me, some rando said, oh, service was really bad and so slow, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take that feedback and I'll go to the team and I'll be like, this is the feedback I got from a random person, you know, but
Yeah.
I'll put it to like literal, like a, you know, like a grain of
grain.
salt. But then when it comes from a close friend, I go into it. So
Because you know they have your best interests at
yes,
heart. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's not necessarily a battle, but it was a debate or it was a conversation worth putting energy into it. So I sat down and I asked him, okay, so can you tell me, what do you mean by this, and what do you mean by that, and what would
Yeah.
you do better? And he sat with me and gave me, and then I took all of that and I went back and I said, listen, this is someone from I really respect and someone I care about, so please keep extra attention to what he has to say, because he has our best interest and it's coming from a place of love.
Yeah.
So again, it could be a situation and it could be something that
Yeah.
that holds like value to you, so a passion project or a
Yeah.
company or whatever, that yes,
Yeah.
that's worth going into it for. But then again, not everything is, and I think that's where it's tricky. You have to kind of find the difference between the two.
Yeah, and I think like when it comes to so for me, when I need to confront a situation, I'll definitely take time to think about it. I'll think carefully about what I want to say and how I say it, because I think that's really important. It's never about what you're saying. It's always how you say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can be 100% correct in your point, but if you say it in a way that's dismissive or
aggressive.
rude
Oh,
or
yeah.
aggressive,
Yeah.
the person receiving it is never going to hear you.
No.
Yeah. They're
Which is-
they're automatically going to put up a wall and,
And
that's
switch
it.
off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is why I said the whole, like, that's when I explained how do I address. I always address by, this is what I heard and this is what I understood.
Yes.
That's the way, because as soon as you come off with your opinion in an aggressive
Yeah.
tone, people, like you said, Shehlaa, they
Yeah.
shut down.
And it's hard because, sometimes things get heated, you're passionate about something, or you're like really angry about what the person has said. So, but I still think then if it's worth it, it's never too late to go back and readdress it.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily that it's just one conversation and that's it. Sometimes you have to have multiple conversations.
Yeah.
And if it's worth it, then it's worth doing that.
Something I do, and I know Saleh, I think I told you about it, and you did it, I think, a while ago. Also, is I write my notes. In my notes, I would put down each point I wanted to make, and
Yeah.
I would, I even take it a step further, and I write it how I want to word it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because sometimes
Like-
you forget.
Exactly, and for me especially, is like when I am in a confrontational atmosphere, or if I'm just having that discussion, I do tend to forget, or not just forget, just be, I guess, very emotional,
Yeah.
and I don't say what I wanted to say, or like things get sidetracked.
Yeah.
So what I like to do is I put down the main point. So even if the conversation does get sidetracked, which has happened to me a lot, it gets sidetracked to a different, a different topic
or a different direction.
or exactly, the person like talking will take it in a different way, so they would sidetrack into a different subject.
Yeah.
I can easily just bring back and
Go
just be
back
like,
and
okay,
bring them back to your agenda.
Exactly, and be like, okay, I know that,
Yeah.
but this is also what I wanted to say.
I think that's so good, because for people that are, maybe like us, are non-confrontational,
Yeah.
that's a very good point, because that helped me, at least, because whenever you address something with someone and you're a non-confrontational person, so you're maybe nervous, maybe
Yeah.
a bit defensive, maybe you anxious. The bullet point system or the note system really
Yeah.
helps you kind of get your point across and lets you stay on the topic.
Exactly.
And lets the other person know that this is exactly what's on your mind without
And-
wasting time.
yeah,
Because
and-
if it takes longer, it just
Exactly.
gets more tiring and more energy spent, and then you get exhausted towards the end.
Exactly. And like I said, like for me, with what I love about it is, or what I have even done is, in the beginning of the conversation, I will say, by the way, I have notes here. I'm not on my phone being rude. I have my notes. And so I would just
Thank God, alhamdulillah, I have never faced this with Shehlaa before, because I'd be so nervous if she tells me I have notes.
By the way, I know it sounds very like a very
methodical.
yes.
I was like, mythology?
Sorry, I had
But-
brain lag.
But yeah, and I don't know, I like my little system, and
Yeah.
I do notes a lot, and like sometimes Hassan I think he'll just any book or any notebook anyone would find around the house.
There'll
They'll
be
just
random
find
notes.
random notes with random things. Like it could be notes about cooking, and then notes with a conversation, and then things to do, and then
Yeah.
things for the baby. So it's funny, but I do love my lists
Yeah.
and my points.
Something I wanted to also bring up is the issue of, okay, say for example, it's a very thin line between picking a battle and saying I'm not going to fight this one and festering that. So
Yeah.
for example, say you're again a non-confrontational person,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh no, this battle is not worth it. Oh no, this battle is not worth it. The thing is, going back again, if it's a topic that you're passionate about, if it's about something you're passionate about, if it's a person you hold value and you care about, and it comes from a person that you respect, etc., all of these things that are important, if you don't get your opinion across, and if you don't at least kind of get that out, your whatever your thoughts are about that topic, you may result into a negative impact of festering that energy,
And
keeping it
resenting
inside,
them. Yeah.
and then building resentment
Yeah.
over the years,
Yeah.
which could potentially lead to a bigger blow up later.
Yeah.
So I definitely deal with this.
Yeah.
What I do, and I did this.
It's always,
especially-
by the way, with non-confrontational people.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like
we hold it
actually,
in and
yeah,
then, yeah.
it's like no, this battle is not worth it. When actually it is.
Yeah, with me, when I first got married, I wouldn't tell Hassan anything, and like I was homesick at certain points, especially
Yeah.
the first few months. I was lonely. I felt like because I did move here and I didn't know anyone, and
Yeah.
so I slowly got to meet people. But as I was at the first few months, it was hard, and I would literally just let my issues build up, and I would never bring it up. And then I remember one time we went to the grocery store, and
Oh yeah, I remember this.
and we're at Spinneys,
Yeah.
and we're going through the vegetables and picking up groceries, and all of a sudden my mom calls, and I pick up the phone, and I'm like, "Hi, Mama," and then she's talking, and I just start
Bursting
crying.
into tears.
Those poor carrots. What did they ever do to you?
It was actually tomatoes. I still remember. And then I remember Hassan was ahead of me, and I was pushing the cart, and he looks back, and he's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, and all he sees,
Yeah, is her on the phone and crying, and she couldn't even speak. So I was like, okay, just leave the cart and let's
Yeah.
go back to the car.
Yeah.
and I remember we went back to the car, and I just started crying. I closed the phone with my mom, and I'm like, I think she just started thinking like, okay, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then my dad called, and I looked at the phone. I'm like, I'm not gonna pick up. I'm not gonna pick up.
Yeah.
And then I remember screaming at Hassan, "You pick up! No, you pick up!" And I just couldn't speak to him. And then after that, he started telling me, "Look, you have to talk to me. Like
Yeah.
if things are happening, if you have to let out whatever's going on in your head and just talk to someone." And slowly, I started to learn not to let things build up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely do that, and till this day I still do it. But then I try to, whenever it gets to a level that I can't,
Yeah.
I let it go.
That's the thing. You don't. I mean, maybe calling it or phrasing them as battles may have a negative connotation to it. So it might not be a battle per se, but in your head, it was
Exactly.
something that could have resulted in a maybe at that time maybe an argument, maybe a negative feelings,
Yeah.
or
Exactly.
so it was actually addressing, again, not perhaps a battle, but it was addressing something that was festering, that you could have, let's say, maybe a conflict or an avoidable conflict,
Yeah.
but then what you ended up doing was kind of just bursting out
Exactly.
in
Yeah.
the,
And
in the middle of a supermarket.
And I remember thinking like, oh my God, I need to get her to the car. People are going to think I'm like some horrible husband, some abuser
I mean,
or something.
funny fact, after I calmed down, we went back and continued grocery shopping, and the cart was still there with the ingredients.
Which
still
was
there.
like a bonus.
Actually, you know what? I was thinking, good thing you addressed that, because I think a listener would be like, whatever happened to the cart?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's a great example, and I think
Yeah.
it's always good to have that communication, especially, I guess, when between you guys, you're married. So I think whenever you have a bond or relationship, even with best friends or siblings or even parents
Yeah.
and their kids, there always has to be this open line of communication, because I think there is no such thing as when it comes to personal matters, I think it's always good to. I don't think the question should be whether this battle is worth fighting or not. It's always worth fighting, because if you
Yeah.
think about it, say even if you're, sibling or someone has points out something that, might not matter much to them, but it matters to you, that will end up festering inside, and then like Hassan said, you'll end up having this like resentment towards this person, or
Yeah.
you might address and be like, oh, so my sibling, for example, thinks this certain way. I'm not okay with that, but you know what? It's their life. It doesn't matter. But you'll actually carry that with you through your whole life,
Yeah.
and you'll always be like,
Yeah.
oh, they think this certain way, instead of just addressing and maybe meeting in the middle, or looking at where they're coming from, understanding that, and not letting it build that energy inside of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, I feel like we could go on and on about this topic.
Yeah.
But I think maybe we'll wrap up. But on that note, I feel like we could go on and on about most of the things that we talk about.
Yeah, it's always hard to
To stop.
stop, because we try our best to have it like an easy flowing episode.
Yeah. And we want to also try and cover like all angles, but it's really hard in just like 40 odd minutes to do that.
Exactly.
So if you guys, if our listeners want us to revisit any of the topics we've talked about, please do reach out to us and let us know. There's a few ways you can reach out to us. As always, you can either follow us on our Instagram and Facebook at Let's All Scream, or email us on letsallscream.podcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, and like Hassan said, if it's not revisiting a topic, if you guys want us to bring up new topics that we haven't already discussed, then again, just let us know. We always post weekly questions on our stories about you guys, where you can suggest topics as well.
Yeah.
But we're having a blast. I can't believe that we're
Almost at 20 episodes.
almost at 20
Yeah.
episodes. That's insane. That's
Yeah.
5 months worth of doing this.
I can't believe
but
Is that 5 months? Oh,
yeah, we consistency, guys. Someone actually, this is a maybe completely sidetracking question, but someone asked me, and they were like the other day, do you guys ever plan of what happens if one of you guys are going to go on vacation? In my head, I was like, oh no, we can't ever. like khalas, wherever we go now, we have to travel
We just-
together.
yeah, we just travel together.
But thank you guys so much for listening, and we can't wait to connect with you next week.
Thank
Thanks,
you
guys.
guys.
Bye.